Imagine for a second that your face, the literal structure of your nose, the melanin in your skin, the shape of your eyes, is just a draft.
Like a Word document.
Exactly, like a Word document. You wake up, you look in the mirror, and you realize, you know what? This draft isn't working for the market right now. So you highlight, you delete, you retype.
And we're not just talking about like a new haircut or some clever makeup. We are talking about permanent medical rewriting of your racial identity.
Totally. And the question is,
Yeah.
if that technology exists, and honestly, we're pretty much there, should the government step in and say, stop?
Or is that the ultimate violation of your freedom?
It sounds like something straight out of Black Mirror.
It does, but this is actually the core of a really rigorous high-stakes debate that we're digging into today.
We are diving deep into the World Universities Debating Championships, specifically the 2010 quarterfinal. And for people who haven't followed the WDC, we kind of need to set the scene here.
Oh, absolutely.
These aren't just, people shouting on Twitter. These are some of the smartest university students in the world. And they're given 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes.
It's insane.
To prepare a case on a topic that could literally tear society apart.
It's mental athletics at the highest level. And the motion they were given was this House would ban procedures to alter one's racial appearance.
So no Michael Jackson surgeries, no skin bleaching, no eyelid widening.
A full blanket ban.
Right. And what makes this debate so fascinating is that it isn't just about surgery. It's a clash between two, fundamentally different ways of viewing what a human being even is.
Completely. On one side, you have the government team, and they argue that these procedures are a capitulation to white supremacy.
The biological colonialism.
That's the framing. And then on the other side, the opposition says, my body, my rules. They argue that banning these procedures is actually a form of tyranny.
You're being locked in a biological cage you didn't choose.
Exactly. And I think it really boils down to one central tension, which we should probably flag right at the start.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's this conflict between the battering ram and the protective field.
I saw that in the notes and it just gave me chills. The battering ram versus the shield.
It's the whole question of the day, really. Are you, as a minority, obligated to use your face as a battering ram to break down social prejudice? Or are you allowed to pick up a shield, in this case surgery, to hide from that prejudice, even if it means, leaving your community behind?
Wow, that is heavy. But that's why we're here. So let's unpack this. We have to start with the government's case because they're the ones proposing the ban.
Right.
And they don't start with safety or medical risks. They go straight for the jugular.
Yeah.
The fetishization of whiteness.
They do. The government opens by painting a picture of the world as it currently is. And, it's not a pretty picture. They argue that in a post-colonial world and in many places influenced by Western media, white is not just a color.
It's a currency.
It's a currency. That's the perfect word for it.
Right. They talk about white is right, and they are being abstract about it. They point to these massive industries in Japan, Korea, Indonesia.
And even parts of the Caribbean and Africa. Yeah. We're talking about skin whitening creams, bleaches, and blepharoplasty.
That's the eyelid surgery, right? To look more Western.
The double eyelid surgery. It's a huge, huge industry. And the government's point is that these aren't just vanity projects. When a mother puts whitening cream on her daughter, or when a young professional gets their eyelids cut, they're buying into a hierarchy.
It's the blemish narrative.
Yeah.
I found this part really compelling.
Explain that.
Well, it's like, if I sell you a cream for acne, I'm implying acne is bad. It's a medical problem.
Right, something to be fixed.
So if I sell you a cream for dark skin,
then you are implying dark skin is a medical problem. You're pathologizing an entire race.
yes, you're treating heritage like a disease that needs a cure. And the government argues that just allowing these procedures to exist on the open market, it validates that sickness. It tells the world, yes, being non-white is a defect, and thankfully we have a fix. But hold on. People modify their bodies all the time. People go to the gym, they dye their hair, they get breast implants. Why is this different? Why should the government get involved in this specific modification?
This is where your favorite subject comes in.
Oh, yes. Game theory.
I knew you'd be excited. The government uses a game theoretic argument to explain why this isn't actually a free choice.
Okay, let's break this down because I love this mechanism. This is classic prisoner's dilemma stuff. Or, more accurately, it's a coercion trap.
Walk us through it. How does giving someone an option, the option to change their race, actually take away their freedom.
Okay, so imagine you and I are both applying for the same high-paying job
Mhm.
in a society that is, let's say, secretly or even openly racist.
Okay.
We're both from the same minority group. If neither of us changes our appearance, we're judged on our merits, or at least we face the exact same bias. We're on a level playing field.
Right. Status quo.
But if you go get the surgery to look white, certainly you have an advantage. You fit the standard.
Yeah.
You get that halo effect. Now, I'm in trouble. If I stay natural, I now look unprofessional or radical by comparison. I'm at a clear disadvantage.
So to compete, you have to get the surgery too.
Exactly. Even if I love my heritage, even if I hate the idea of surgery, I have to do it just to get back to zero. It's a race to the bottom. We both end up undergoing painful, expensive, identity-erasing procedures just to remain competitive.
It's the rat race.
It's exactly like steroids in professional sports. I mean, if one guy takes steroids to hit more home runs...
The pitcher has to take steroids to throw faster.
Right. And eventually, everyone is juicing, everyone is ruining their health, and nobody is actually winning any more than they were before. They're just trapped.
And that is the government's hook. They say, the individual, you or me, we cannot stop this cycle on our own. If I unilaterally decide to opt out and keep my natural face, I just lose the job. I lose the social status. I fall behind.
So the only entity powerful enough, big enough to stop the whole rat race is the state.
Exactly. The government argues they have to ban the steroids, the surgery, to protect the collective. They are restricting your individual liberty to cut your eyelids in order to protect the entire community from being coerced into this aesthetic arms race.
It's an argument about asymmetrical information and pressure.
Yeah.
They're saying that the choice is an illusion. You aren't choosing to be white. You're being pressured by an economic gun to your head.
And they take it a step further, conceptually. They compare this ban to laws against hate speech or Holocaust denial.
It's a bold comparison.
It is, but the logic holds if you accept their premise. We ban hate speech because it harms the collective dignity of a group. It makes society toxic for them. The government argues that allowing people to medically erase their race does the same thing. It is a physical declaration that the race is inferior.
So by banning the surgery, the state is essentially saying, we refuse to let you treat this community's identity as a mistake.
Correct. It's the state asserting a right to dignity over the right to surgery.
Okay, so that's the government. And honestly, when you lay it out like that, the coercion, the rat race, the psychological damage, it sounds pretty convincing.
It does. Banning it feels like a protective measure.
It really does, until the opposition stands up.
And man, do they stand up.
The tone shift here in the debate is just wild. The government is all about systems and society and collective health. The opposition is about you, the individual.
Their core philosophy is resisting what we might call the tyranny of biology.
The tyranny of biology. I like that phrase.
It's the idea that the government has no right to look at a newborn baby, see the color of their skin and say, okay, this is your team. You are locked into this identity, this culture, and this history forever. No exits allowed.
There was a specific story from the opposition. One of the speakers talked about their own childhood. Do you remember that?
Yes, the Chinese school anecdote. It was powerful.
Tell me.
The speaker described growing up and being forced to learn Chinese, being told, this is your culture, this is your history, simply because of how they looked. But the speaker felt no connection to it.
They felt American?
Or Western, or just individual. They liked English literature. They didn't want the cultural baggage that came with the face.
And that line, it really stuck with me. Communities don't own people.
That's the core of it.
Just because I look like I belong to a group doesn't mean I signed a contract to be their ambassador.
And this brings us right back to that terrifying metaphor we mentioned at the top.
The battering ram.
The battering ram. Yeah, let's dig into this because the opposition basically accuses the government of using human beings as weapons.
That's a hell of an accusation.
Well, think about what the government is saying. They're saying, you cannot change your face because we need you to stay visible. We need you to stay in the minority group to fight racism. We need you to normalize non-white features.
So you have to act as the battering ram against the castle gates of racism. You might get bruised, you might get hurt, you might lose that job, but it's for the greater good.
And the opposition says, that is immoral. It is monstrous for a government to demand that an individual sacrifice their personal happiness, their safety, or their economic future just to serve as a symbol for social progress.
They use that analogy, the one about the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
I mean, that just sucked the air out of the room.
It was a brutal analogy, but it was very effective in a debate context. They argued that forcing someone to stay in a racial identity that causes them suffering just to improve the standing of that race is akin to locking people in the Gaza Strip until they make the Gaza Strip better. It's stark. But the logic is clear. Don't trap me in a bad situation and then tell me it's my job to fix it. If the house is on fire, you don't lock the residents inside and tell them to fight the fire.
You let them get out.
You let them get out. So the opposition argues that if society is racist, the crime is on the racist, not on the person trying to escape the racism.
Right. If I change my skin color to get a job, I'm not the one validating racism. The employer who wouldn't hire me before is the one validating racism.
I'm just surviving.
But the opposition isn't just about escaping misery, are they? They have this kind of, I don't know, a sci-fi utopian vision of the future, too. The post-racial dream.
This is the racist choice argument. They want to de-essentialize race.
De-essentialize, meaning take the essence out of it.
Exactly. Take the power out of it. They compare race to clothing or a haircut or a job. You choose your clothes to express who you are. Why not your skin?
I could just hear the government team screaming in the background that race is not a T-shirt. It's hundreds of years of history and pain.
True, of course. But the opposition poses a question. What if it was like a T-shirt? If everyone could change their race tomorrow? If I could be Asian today, black tomorrow, white on Tuesday, what happens to racism?
Dissolves. Or gets confused.
It gets confused. That's the key. If facial features are just a costume or a performance, then racists can't target anyone effectively. They don't know who is authentically anything.
Yeah.
It breaks the link between appearance and stereotype.
It's like camouflaging the whole society. If everyone is shifting all the time, the target moves too fast for the bigot's aim.
That's the argument. The opposition says that by making race fluid, you actually destroy the hierarchy. If anyone can be white, then being white stops being special. You inflate the currency until it's worthless.
So we have the government saying banning this protects the community from self-destruction, and the opposition saying allowing this protects the individual from the tyranny of the community.
A total impasse.
But we have to pivot here because there's a medical aspect to this that makes it even messier.
Right. We move from the sociological to the psychological. The central question becomes, is the desire to change your race a mental illness? Or is it a rational response to a sick world?
And the opposition brings up the concept of race dysphoria.
They do, and
Yeah.
they lean very, very heavily on the transgender comparison here. This is a crucial part of their strategy.
Lay that out for us.
Well, society and the medical community has largely accepted that some people feel a profound mismatch between their gender identity and their biological sex. We call it gender dysphoria.
Right.
And the treatment is often gender affirmation surgery. The opposition asks, if I can change my gender to match my internal self, why can't I change my race?
It's a consistency check. If autonomy applies to gender, why doesn't it apply to race? What's the meaningful difference?
Exactly. And they argue that some people feel genuinely disconnected from their racial appearance, or in more traumatic cases, they associate their skin color with abuse.
Right, they mentioned the trauma aspect. If a child is beaten up and called racial slurs every single day, they might grow up associating their own face with pain.
And the opposition argues that denying surgery to that person is just cruel. It's denying them a way to heal their trauma. They ask, who are you to tell this victim that they must keep the face that reminds them of their abuse?
It's a powerful point. But the government pushes back on this hard. They don't buy the race dysphoria argument at all.
No, they flatly reject it. The government argues that race dysphoria doesn't exist in a vacuum. You aren't born wanting to be white.
You're taught to want to be white.
You're taught that. So they're saying the sickness isn't in the patient's head, the sickness is in society.
Precisely. If a black child wants to be white, that is a symptom of racism. The government argues that the solution to racism isn't surgery, it's social change. It's fixing the world.
And if you give them the surgery, you are treating the symptom and ignoring the disease. You're letting society off the hook.
And they make a distinction between identity and fashion, right?
Yeah.
Because the opposition kept asking, well, are you going to ban wigs? Are you going to ban tanning salons?
That's the classic slippery slope argument. If we ban racial surgery, do we ban Michael Jackson's vitiligo treatment? Do we ban hair dye? Where do you draw the line?
And the government's response?
They say, don't be ridiculous. They argue that race is binary and historical in a way that hair color isn't.
It has weights.
It has immense weight. Changing your bone structure is a fundamental shift in moral identity. It's a permanent erasure of history. A wig is just a wig. It's temporary.
But wait, The opposition had a really cool counterexample to this idea that's always about erasing history or becoming white. Do you remember the Ganguro girls?
Yes, the Ganguro subculture in Japan. This was a brilliant tactical move in the debate.
For those who don't know, this was, and still is to some extent, a trend in Japan where young women would tan their skin super dark, like deep mahogany.
And wear white concealer around their eyes and lips. It was a very specific, very intense look.
And it was often seen as a rejection of traditional Japanese beauty standards of pale skin, right?
Exactly. So the opposition points to them and says, look, it's not always a one-way street to whiteness.
Yeah, it proves racial alteration can be subcultural, it can be artistic, it can be an affinity for another culture, like the Ganguro girls adopting what they perceived as a California surfer, or maybe even a black aesthetic.
So if you ban racial alteration, you aren't just stopping people from trying to be white. You're stopping artists, rebels, and subcultures from experimenting with their own bodies.
You're policing expression.
You're policing expression. But the government, I mean, you can imagine they just roll their eyes at that.
Oh, totally. Oh, you found one subculture in Harajuku.
Yeah.
So that invalidates the millions and millions of people bleaching their skin across Asia and Africa.
That is exactly their response. They call it a distraction, a marginal case. They say, sure, the Ganguro girls exist, but let's look at the data. Let's look at the market. 99% of the flow is toward whiteness. The government argues that you can't build policy around the edge cases. You have to build policy around the systemic reality. And the systemic reality is white is power.
Which brings us back to the real-world consequences, because we can talk about philosophy all day, but what happens when this hits the job market? We touched on the rat race earlier,
Yeah.
but the government paints a scenario they call the resume scenario. That is, well, it's terrifying.
It's the validation of racism argument, and it addresses a specific nightmare. What happens to the people who don't change?
Okay, walk us through the interview.
Imagine you are an employer. You have some racial bias, maybe unconscious, maybe conscious. A black candidate walks in. In a world where racial reassignment is banned, you have to deal with them as they are.
You have to confront your own bias.
Yes, but in a world where it's legal.
The employer thinks, if you really wanted this job, you would have fixed your face.
Exactly. You know the standard is white. You had the option to change. The fact that you didn't means you're making a statement.
You're being difficult. You're being political.
It shifts the blame. Suddenly, being a victim of racism becomes a bad career choice. The employer can tell themselves, I'm not racist. I just hire people who are willing to do what it takes to fit the corporate culture. This person refused to adapt.
That is so insidious. It gives the bigot a logical escape hatch.
And the government calls this the big jar of racism.
I wanted to ask about that phrase. What do they mean by that?
They argue that a jar of whitening cream sitting on a shelf is literally a big jar of racism. By allowing it to be sold, you are commodifying the racism. You are saying, here is a product that confirms your skin is the problem.
Wow.
And if the government doesn't smash that jar, they are endorsing the poison inside it.
So allowing the surgery perfects the racism. It cleans it up and makes it a simple, clean transaction.
Right, but, and there's always a but in this debate, the opposition looks at that same scenario and says, you're missing the point. We aren't talking about resumes, we're talking about survival.
The physical safety argument.
Yes. They argue that in extremely racist societies, passing as the dominant race isn't about getting a promotion. It's about not getting beaten up by the police. It's about walking home safely at night.
That's the protective shield again. If I live in a neighborhood where I am targeted daily, the opposition asks, why should I be denied a shield? Why do I have to be a martyr for the cause?
And the government's rejoinder here is cold, hard logic. It's brutal, they say. If beating people up makes them turn white, that encourages the racists to beat more people up.
Whoa. Say that again?
Think about the incentive. If the racists see that violence works, that if they terrorize a community enough, that community will erase itself and assimilate, then violence becomes a successful strategy.
They'll ramp it up.
They will ramp it up. The government says, we cannot negotiate with terrorists. We cannot let violence dictate our identity.
So the government solution is to use the police and the law to protect minorities.
Not to help minorities disappear. You don't solve hate crimes by eliminating the victims. You solve them by punishing the criminals.
It really is a complete deadlock on meaning, isn't it?
It is. Who owns the meaning of your skin?
The opposition says, I do. I define what my skin means. If I want to change it, that's my narrative. It's personal.
And the government says, No, you don't. Meaning is social. Meaning is historical. You cannot unilaterally decide that your skin color doesn't carry centuries of weight. The world has placed meaning on you, and you can't just surgery it away without damaging everyone else who looks like you.
Man, we have looked at the trap of white is right, the battering ram of individual sacrifice, the medical debate over dysphoria, and this nightmare of the resume scenario. It's a mess of competing ethics.
It is. And in the final moments of the debate, the opposition throws one last punch that I think we need to mention.
The Miss Universe comment.
Chuckles, yes. The Miss Universe comment. The opposition took a shot at the government's entire plan. The government keeps talking about changing society and ending racism through collective dignity.
And the opposition basically said, that's cute.
They called it a Miss Universe speech. I want world peace. They argued that the government is offering these vague, abstract promises of a better future.
While the opposition is offering tangible, immediate relief.
Right. I can fix your pain today with surgery. The government can only fix your pain maybe in 50 years with policy and social change. It's the immediacy of the individual need versus the long-term, maybe impossible goal of the collective.
So after this entire deep dive, where does this leave us? What's the final takeaway?
I think it leaves us with a question that goes way beyond plastic surgery. It really asks, is race a genetic fiction that we should be able to edit like a bad draft? Or is it a historical reality that we must honor, preserve, and protect from erasure?
And here's the thought I want to leave our listener with. We talk a lot about owning our bodies, my body, my choice. But this debate really suggests that maybe we don't fully own them. Maybe our faces belong partially to our ancestors and partially to our descendants.
And here is the provocation. If we allow people to edit their race, do we destroy racism by making it confusing? Or do we perfect racism by making whiteness a purchasable commodity? If you can buy your way out of oppression, have you solved the problem or have you just monetized it?
That is going to keep me up tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Stay curious.